All right, kiddos, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news is you've pretty much already started learning what we're going to do today. The bad news is it's a smidgen harder, but I know you can do it if you just stick with me. Today we're going to practice solving two-step equations. So go ahead and put your name and your date on your paper. All right, two-step equations are exactly what they sound like. They're equations that have more than one step, or two steps. They have more than one operation. Meaning, instead of just saying x plus something, they might say 2x plus something, whereas you have multiplying and adding. So when you have more than one operation, that obviously means to solve it, you'll have to do more than one inverse. And if you need to remember, our inverse groups are adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing. So to get rid of adding, you do subtracting. To get rid of subtracting, you do adding. To get rid of multiplying, you divide. To get rid of division, you do multiplication. Okay. Now, the confusing part when you're solving two-step equations is the way that you undo operations. And remember, we undo operations because we want to get the variable by itself. So we have to undo everything else on that side. When we undo operations, let me try that sentence again. When we undo operations, we do them in the reverse order that we would solve them in. So think about using PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Only backwards. So first, we will add or subtract. Second, we would multiply or divide. You could do exponents last. Parentheses last. Exponents would be third. To be very honest with you, you're not going to see many parentheses and exponents problems in this stuff while we're practicing two-step equations. Almost all of them are going to have to do with adding, subtracting, and multiplying and dividing. Okay, so it's a lot to get in just a short amount of time, so let's try this. We have 2x minus 5 equals 15. Looks like any other operation we've done before, expression we've done before, except for there's two steps here. We have multiplication and we have subtraction. Our variable is x, and we want to get x by itself. So the first thing we need to do is undo an operation. Even though in order of operations, we typically would do multiplication first, we're undoing it. So it's like the opposite or the inverse of that. So the first thing we're going to do is add or subtract. So we're going to get rid of this 5 because it's subtraction. In order to get rid of a subtraction, we have to add by the same number. So plus 5 and minus 5 are going to cancel each other out. Then I'm just left with 2x equals whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other. So I'm left with 2x equals 20. I know a lot of you guys like to try to do these problems all the steps in your head. I'm going to ask for the next couple of days you write them out step by step. So if we are having a problem solving them, I can help you figure out what you're doing wrong. Okay, so now that we've gotten rid of our 5, we're going to get rid of our next operation, which is multiplication. Our inverse of multiplication is division. So instead of multiplying by 2 here, we're going to divide by 2. I'm keeping it balanced, so whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Which means this multiplying by 2 and dividing by 2 cancel each other out, and I'm left with just x. On this side, 20 divided by 2 gives me 10. X should equal 10. Again, I can go back and check that. I would have 2 times 10 minus 5 equals 15. 2 times 10 is 20. And 20 minus 5 is 15, and 15 equals 15. That checks out. Okay, we're going to try another one. As always, I'm going to ask you to pause the video. If you're a little unsure of where to start, let me give you some hints. The two operations you see here are adding 12 and dividing by 4. So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can solve this one, and then go back and hit play to check your work. Okay, so we have adding and we have division. I know I want to get this x by itself because it's the variable. So the first thing I'm going to do is backwards order of operations. I'm going to add or subtract, which means I want to get rid of this adding 12. The inverse of addition is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 12 here. Those two will cancel each other out. And I'm left with x divided by 4. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. 28 minus 12 is going to leave me with 6 and 1. So I should have x divided by 4 equals 16. The great thing is now I have one operation to do. This should look a lot more like something I've solved before. Again, this operation, when you see that long bar, means divide. So if I'm dividing by 4, the inverse to get rid of it is going to be multiply by 4. That means these two are going to cancel each other out, and I'm left with just x. Whatever I do to one side, though, I have to do to the other. 16 divided by 4, I'm just going to put my bar line here and solve this. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 6 is 64. So x should equal 64. If I wanted to, I could check that over here. I would have 64 divided by 4 plus 12, equals 28. 64 divided by 4. That should go in, let's see, 4 goes into 6. 1 time, 2 left over, 16 plus 12. And if you needed to do long division, that's fine, but for the sake of time, I'm going to keep going. And 16 plus 12 is 28, and I end up with 28 plus 28. All right, guys, go ahead and try your 6 problems. I was nice today since it's so close to the end of the week. There are no word problems here, so I expect everyone to try their best on all 6 of these problems. I'll see you tomorrow.